Okay, so Heidegger, Dasein, ontology, uh, existence, existential, all of that. All right, I'm going to try to keep these Heidegger videos shorter and several because I recognize the concepts are difficult. Okay, so first of all, Dasein, literally being there. What Heidegger wants to call our attention to is that any philosophical project that we're going to undertake whatsoever, any kind of possible description of what it is to think, what it is to exist, what it is to be, that the very possibility of the philosophical project is fundamentally the question of being. What is there? What is, right? The question of isness. That's where we have to start for Heidegger. Now, one of Heidegger's great revolutionary insights is that the only place we have to start with respect to this question of isness, this question of being, this question of what is ourselves. How we are actually experiencing being. To pretend that we are experiencing being in some other way, or that we have some kind of familiarity with being other than what is given for us, is just crazy. You know, all you know of chairs is your experience of chairs. All you know of air and plants and flowers is your experience of air and plants and flowers. All you know of being is the being that you have, the being that you are. So fundamentally, what we're talking about when we're talking about the project of being is the project of the phenomenology of the self. What is it that we are actually experiencing? Now, this is the question of Dasein. And when we were speaking of the difference between what is ontic and what is ontological, we were just talking about the difference between sort of what is actually there and how we're going to talk about or how we're going to study what is there. So don't worry about that distinction particularly. What you need to acknowledge is that the question of Dasein is fundamentally the question of you. How do you experience the world? How do beings like us experience the world? Because there's a kind of hidden presumption in Heidegger that beings like us all are going to experience the world in pretty similar ways. Not in identical ways, but in pretty similar ways. And this is a premise which you could challenge. However, he's going to try to, you can say, well, at the end of the day, is Heidegger only talking about what it is like to be like Heidegger? And this is a question some people have asked, and I guess, as with any philosophical enterprise, you have to ask yourself as you're reading it, does this sound like my experience? Does this sound like some kind of beginning of a description of what it is like to be the kind of self that I am? So that's the question of Dasein. Then we're going to get into the characteristics of Dasein. Now, the first thing that we should notice is, as Heidegger insists, that Dasein, the word da, there, sein, being, is always experienced as being there. That is, we are in some particular place. We encounter ourselves as, yes, here I am. This is me. I am here. This is the fundamental characteristic of what it is to be the kinds of things that we are. Now, a further characteristic of that being there that he points out is this condition of thrownness, the fact that we find ourselves always and encounter ourselves always sort of, thrown into a particular situation. Discovering ourselves in the place that we happen to be. and not just place in the kind of literal sense of geographical place, but all that goes on with your mind, your thinking, your feeling, your valuing, all of that you sort of feel like is given to you. You are thrown into the middle of it as a fundamental characteristic of your being. So you're present with all this stuff. All of this stuff is, you've been thrown into the middle of all this stuff, and all of it is you. Now, as you know yourself, there are these moments when you feel very aware of what it is to be you, this question of the being of you. And then there are all these many other ways, moments, modes of sort of no longer feeling like you're quite as aware of being who you are, what you are, feeling removed from who you are, what you are. And really the project of Heidegger at some level is to recognize the modes that take us away from Dasein and the modes that sort of bring us more intimately into a relationship with Dasein. And the way he's sorting those modes are with the big words of authenticity and inauthenticity, where inauthenticity just means the kinds of modes that take us away from an awareness of Dasein, and authenticity means the kinds of modes which bring us back into an awareness of who we are, what we are, where we are. Now, for Heidegger, he wants to say that this is not a normative project, this is a descriptive project. So he is insisting that he's just describing the various ways in which this happens, like doing the phenomenological work, doing the study of how Dasein actually operates in the world. Let's stop there, and then in my next video I'll talk about some of the modes of estrangement from Dasein, some modes of inauthenticity, and then after that we can talk about some modes of sort of the recovery of Dasein, the modes of authenticity, modes that bring us into more intimate relationships or help us to recover the intimacy of our relationship with our own Dasein. Okay, thanks.